Thanks for joining us today. We are going to be talking solar and what you need to know to go solar yourself in 2021. Just sort of basic housekeeping stuff. This is our, used to be called Energy Breakfast, our energy lunch series these days that we can always check us out. We're going to have some event at some time on the third Tuesday of the month. We think that we've been talking. We think we're going to keep doing some online options, but we're hoping to get back to having some in-person breakfasts sometime soon. So let us know if you're excited about that. And as we go along today, feel free to use the chat discussion to ask questions. Heidi will try to alert me if I'm forgetting anybody, but I do seem like we have a few enough people on the call that we can have a conversation. So feel free also to unmute yourself and ask a question. You can ask questions as you go along, and I will either answer them right away, or if I'm going to answer it later in the presentation, I'm just going to let you know that, and we'll get to it then. So. Thanks again. This is sort of our annual springtime conversation that we talk about solar. I look forward to it every time. It's always fun to make the updates and talk about how things have changed a little bit, but the big picture is still that solar is a good thing. So let's get started. We are recording today, just so you know that. Heidi's got the record on. So. Great, so just a quick reminder of who we are, Winneshiek Energy District. Our vision is 100% local, renewable energy, efficient energy by 2050. So we really are focusing in on the locally owned aspect of that, because we feel that the dollars that are potentially saved from renewable energy and energy efficiency are even better if they're kept right here within Winneshiek County. And solar is a big part of that, right? So solar is how we can make energy in the county, and energy efficiency is how we can make sure that we're making good use of it. I said this before, but do check out, we do have these monthly energy conversations, formerly known as Energy Breakfast, now online. Do check our newsletter for details. You can check us out at energydistrict.org to get signed up for our newsletter. They're typically twice a month emails, once a newsletter, and then another reminder of when these energy conversations are going to be. We do have past events saved and recorded on our website as well, if you want to go check them out. So just as a quick reminder for when you're thinking solar, a lot of times you want to be thinking efficiency first, because it is usually cheaper to save energy than it is to produce it yourself. So think about changing out the very basic one that I know we talk about over and over again here at the Energy District, is changing out light bulbs. If you change out an LED, you can save, I don't know, $10 on your electricity that year. Well, that LED only costs $1. It's easier to save and cheaper to save that $10 with that $1 LED bulb than it is to spend however much on solar. So do consider energy efficiency improvements when you're sizing your solar system. We'll talk about later why you don't want to make your system too big. But upgrading all the lighting in your house is an easy step. Maybe a new air conditioner could lower your energy usage, and that will allow you to still make 100% of your energy from your solar panels, but do it with a smaller system. And so a lot of times that payback can be better from that perspective. So just a helpful program that we have at the Energy District to help you with that for your homes is the Green Eye AmeriCorps. They have an excellent first step energy efficiency program. They come and they upgrade all your lighting and your water fixtures. They'll do a blower door test in an infrared camera and give you some recommendations on next steps, tell you how leaky your house is. If your house is quite leaky, they will do some basic air sealing if necessary. This is all just one package cost of $150, but it is free to seniors, veterans, low to moderate income households, and those with disabilities. And just to note that the team is now doing in-person audits again. We've all been safely vaccinated here, and I think they're limiting those to vaccinated households. But give us a call if you're interested. Even if you've had a Brightbox program drop off in the past year and now are interested in getting a blower door test, give us a ring and we'll get you set up. For farms and for businesses, if you've got any of those on the line, or if you know anyone who might be interested, the Energy District does have a REAP grant available for farms and businesses to get an energy audit. So the audit is cost shared. The grant pays 75% of the cost of the audit, which is a pretty good deal. And this is something that is based on a rolling sign up. We've got the grant funding given or awarded to us. And so if you sign up and you're an eligible participant, we can get you that cost share right away. You only pay your portion of the fee, and the rest comes to us from the grant, which is great. So we're able to offer these at a discount. Businesses, anything that's small, under 20,000 square feet, basically $250 for those. Farms are a little bit more intensive of a project for me to do and start at 500. Although we'll give you a special quote if you're an especially large farm or if you're a dairy, which can be more complicated. So these are both comprehensive solar and efficiency audits. So we'll look at your opportunities for saving from energy efficiency, as well as giving you figures on solar. And these reports do provide opportunity for farms to apply for cost share on through NRCS's EQIP program. So they've got excellent cost share practices for things like lighting, grain dryers, dairy equipment, heating and insulation, a few other things that are a little less common. And that all businesses, farm or whatever type of small business, is eligible for REAP grants on the practices themselves. We're seeing a lot of folks doing a REAP application for solar. So it's a nice process and a way to get your audit that you need for that REAP grant at a low cost. So give us in touch. And you can look us at, again, online at energydistrict.org, or you can give me a call. My contact information is also on the website. So with that out of the way, we're going to get right into the meat of it and talk about solar itself. We talked about efficiency first, not to oversize, and we'll talk a little bit more as to why you want to do that on your specific utility. You know, a lot of people ask me questions about where does it mount? Can I put it on the roof? Can I put it on the ground? What's the inverter? The answer is yes, you can put it on the roof. You can put it on the ground. Your installers will help you sort that out. If you have a roof that is facing south, it's an excellent location. I like roof mounted locations a lot simply because they don't take up any space on the yard. And they're generally attics. Roofs are a little bit cheaper to put in than ground mounted system for small residential systems, simply because you don't have to pay for the concrete or the steel that goes in the ground to hold those panels in place. The structure of your house's roof is already there and the panels can go on it. Most systems these days are grid connected. So you're using the grid to soak up any energy that you're going to sell back if you're making extra, and you are using the grid at night or on cloudy days to power your home. And we'll talk more about utility policies as to make sense of why that's a good idea. We are seeing more and more systems installed these days with batteries, but typically batteries aren't making a lot of sense from a financial perspective, at least from an energy savings perspective, but they might make sense if you're thinking about putting in batteries instead of putting in a generator, for example. Or if you really want to have backup power, batteries can provide that to you. It's a little bit harder to run numbers on what that dollar cost savings is. But yeah, we'll talk about that too, especially if people have questions. So the place to get started is with a solar site assessment or with a contractor quote. So I do offer a third-party solar site assessment so that if you want to have figures from someone who is not a solar contractor selling the system, I will give you a ballpark figure. I'm typically more pessimistic in my numbers to kind of give you a worst case payback. The contractors' estimates are typically rosier than mine, and quite frankly, they're probably a little bit close to the truth, to the actual, but I just give you sort of that pessimistic sort of like, oh, well, if the shading is really as bad as we think it might be, this is the worst you can do. And the price is a little bit higher than the contractor will probably bid you, so that you can be comfortable with those numbers going forward. So if you're someone who wants that from a third party, or if you're just someone who likes to have all the information before you start talking to a contractor, those solar site assessments are $200 for anybody here in Winneshiek County. And I can do travel costs for anybody who's interested beyond that as well. But I tell this to people too, is that if you know that you've got a good site for solar, especially if you don't have any shade, you could just go straight to a contractor. The contractors are going to give you good quotes that is going to reflect the real price that they're actually bidding, and really pretty good estimates on energy usage as well. I will say that folks are super busy right now. So if you're thinking about going solar this year, it's not too soon to start getting in touch with people and getting on their list. So big thing to talk about when we're talking about solar is tax credits. The tax credits were set to phase down, but were extended as part of last year's rescue package. I can't remember which one this was called, but we basically got a 2-year extension so that the credits are still set to phase down, but they're phasing down later than they would have otherwise. So there is a 26% federal tax credit for solar. Anything that's installed this year. Next year, if you install solar, the tax credit will decline to 22%, and then it goes away completely. And this is for the entire cost of the system. So people ask me sometimes about, is it just the panels? No, it's everything that it costs. Your contractor will give you a bid that says it's going to be a big number, several $1,000s. Everything is going to be included in that, and the tax credit is eligible for that total cost. So if you've been thinking about solar, it's a great time to do it now while these tax credits are happening. And we'll talk about my asterisks there. Businesses and farms can actually start their solar installation now and finish it over the next 2 years and still qualify for the 2022 tax credit. So that 26%, they have a little bit treated differently than residential systems. If they start construction, and that can be something sometimes as simple as the installer having those panels in their warehouse, that can start as starting construction. So they're able to stretch out that timeline a little bit longer. And actually the tax credit for farms and businesses drops to 10% in 2024, and that continues indefinitely. But still, that's a big drop from 22% down to 10%. And it does go away after the end of next year for homeowners completely, barring any extensions or changes. So state tax credits, this is bad news. I'm sure that maybe some of you are hearing this for the first time. They are maybe already gone. The Iowa tax credit was tied to the original version of this federal solar tax credits, and that was set to expire this year. So even though the federal tax credits were expired, the Iowa state solar tax credits were tied to that original law, bill, whatever. So you are still able to apply for the state tax credit this year, but there is a $5 million cap per year in what Iowa will hand out in state tax credits. So they can have as many people on that waiting list as possible, but they're only spending $5 million a year. And that current waiting list is over 2 years long. And so we've been back and forth trying to get to the bottom of this, but it sure seems like it is the case that without action by the state legislature, no funds after this year are going to be awarded, even to folks who maybe have installed solar last year and had their name on that waiting list. So I know that's disappointing, and you should contact your state representatives, I guess, to see. It's very unlikely that anything will happen this session, although you could still certainly call and let them know how you're feeling. It's possible also that next year the legislator could figure out a way, maybe not to extend the tax credits, but even to try to figure out how to make people whole who are on the waiting list. But anyways, I'm going to give you cost estimates here of what solar looks like without taking this tax credits, because if you're not already on the waiting list, your chances of getting them are very, very slim. So just some rough math. If you're thinking about things for yourself, these are the figures that I'm using more or less to estimate solar for homes or for businesses that I'm working with. You can assume that for every kilowatt of solar installed, you can get about 1,300 kilowatt hours produced. Kilowatt hours are what you're billed by, and you can look that up on your billing period if you want to. I assume about 250 per watt installed, and a lot of people want to know this too. How much roof space do I need? How much space do I need in my yard? 100 square feet is more than enough space for every kilowatt of piece that you're putting. So if you're looking at installing a 8 kilowatt system, that'd be a pretty big system for a home. That'd be looking at about 800 square feet. And if I can do that math in my head, I assume that's about $20,000 up front, not counting any of the incentives. So we'll go into that more and a better example coming up. But one key thing to know is that all of our area utilities currently offer some sort of net metering. It's a huge benefit to people who are installing solar. Net metering in its most basic means that if you are selling energy to your utility, they are giving you full retail credit for the value of that energy. So what the great thing about that is that what that means is that you can size your system to meet your annual needs, and the value of energy that you sell the utility is going to be equal to the value of energy that you buy back from the utility. So if you sell them as many as you buy back at the bill, it's going to be a net zero for your usage. So that's really great. It gives you full retail value for the energy that you export to the grid, and anything that you're actually not using at that given moment is just going to go right out to the grid. It's going to power your neighbors' homes and businesses, and that's how the utilities are able to give you that equal full credit for the energy that you sell to them. We'll talk more, especially if people have questions about the changes to Alliance net metering piece. They've changed their rules a little bit. It's still basically net metering. They call it net billing now, and it looks a little different, but the basics are still the same, that you can size your system to meet about 100% of your usage and get full retail credit for it. The one thing with net metering, though, is that you don't want to size larger than what you use, because generally if you sell more energy back to the utility than you use, you will either not be able to be compensated for that, or you're going to give it to them at the end of the year. So just kind of maybe looking back with some more real world numbers here. This is a typical home. The average home uses maybe about 9,000 kilowatt hours a year. We are using rough numbers to make our math easier. And that probably costs about $1,500 per year, about $125 per month. So again, our rule of thumb is that we need about 100 square feet for each kW of solar. And so if we put in a 6 kilowatt solar system, and just for maybe to get your head around more easily, that would be 18 or 20 panels that you see on the roof. So a 6 kilowatt system, maybe 20 panels, would produce 7,800 kilowatt hours per year, close to 90% of this customer's annual usage. So a great system size, not sizing it too aggressively. He knows that that system is always going to be able to produce a good amount of energy most of their home, but it's not going to produce more than they use, even if they have, I don't know, a long vacation some months. And where they will leave money on the table at the end of the year. So rough costs again, assuming a 250 per watt installed before incentives, the 6 kilowatt system will cost about $15,000. What does that payback time look like? Not counting our incentives, just to give this an idea of what things are doing even on their full free market. That 6 kilowatt hours, assuming that this is a south-facing roof and he doesn't have any shade, at least from the hours of 9 until 3, which is where most of the solar energy is happening. And that's going to be about 7,800 kilowatt hours per year. If we assume that 16 cents a kilowatt hour, which is pretty good estimate of kind of our average cost for this area, let's call it $1,200 and $1,250. So that's gonna be about a 12-year payback, not counting any incentives. And of course, if we add our 26% federal tax credit to it, that drops off almost $4,000 of the cost, and the credits, cost after credits is about $11,000. That drops that payback to just under 9 years. And a reminder, the solar system, the panels, everything generally has a warranty on it of 20 to 25 years. So a 10-year payback is a good deal. Oops, I didn't update the years, but the numbers are the same. So if you look at 2021 here, the tax credit here, which at $3,900 is the 26%, and then that next year is 33. It does increase your payback by another half a year if you were going to wait until next year to install your system, just because that federal credit drops from 26 to 22%. So if you're thinking about solar, if you've been on the fence for a while, get on it. This is the year to do it. And just one more thing, I think a lot of people think, well, $15,000, that's a lot of money, even if I'm going to get $4,000 at the end of the year. There are financing options for solar, whether it's a home equity loan, but even Decor Bank and Trust, for one example, actually has a solar specific loan product where they loan you 26% of the cost, and you basically just have one payment on that. I know that Jason's on here. I hope I'm getting the details right, but you have one payment on that at the end. Basically, you pay that off when your solar tax credit comes in, plus the interest that you've accrued over that time period. And then you can set up the remaining 74% of the solar cost over a 10-year period or whatever. So it's very possible that your payments on that 10-year loan will be less. Your principal and your interest could be less expensive than the actual energy that you're going to save on your solar system. So this is just talking about, like, this sort of puts payback kind of out of the question in some ways. We talk about that system with a 9-year payback, but if that person in that example was going to get a loan, they could be cash positive on day one. They could do 100% financing and have those things paid back, first with their tax credit when it comes in, and then with their savings that they're getting each month. So Decor Bank and Trust is a great folks to talk to. They have that solar specific loan, but other banks as well, I'm sure, can help you out, whether it's through a home equity line of credit or a second mortgage sort of thing. If you were going to refinance, you could increase the amount that you're going to and include a price of solar in that piece as well. But Decor Bank and Trust, who is a big supporter of the Wintershik Energy District, has done this a lot. They've financed over 100 solar projects, large and small. I mentioned all of the federal tax credits and how net metering works. There's the same thing for farms and businesses as there is for homeowners, except that businesses actually have an even better incentive to install solar. They can take all the incentive as homeowners, plus they're allowed to stretch out that period that I talked about before, so they could still get the tax credit of this year as a greater amount if they start this year but don't finish until next year. Remember, that's just for businesses. Homeowners have to be done and complete by the end of the year to get this year's credit. But businesses work out a little bit differently. They also can take up to 85% of the cost as a business deduction, the cost of doing business. So they're allowed to take it over time. A lot of times it makes sense to spread that out over a number of years. You're taking that depreciation on the system. But if you want to, you can take it all in 1 year if you feel like it. Just making an assumption of a 25% tax bracket, this offsets another 21% of system costs. So it's almost as good as the federal tax credit it is itself. So that can knock off another 3 or 4 years of payback time for businesses. And boy, we're breezing through things pretty quickly. So I do have a couple more notes of things to talk about. I know that folks have been interested in learning more about what if I don't have a great place for solar, or what if I'm thinking I'm going to move. Both My Energy Cooperative and Allen Clayton County REC have are rural electric cooperatives, and they have a community solar program where you can buy a panel or I don't know if you buy a panel or if you buy a kilowatt, but you can basically buy and purchase a panel at their big community solar garden, and that comes with an on-bill credit. So you basically own the production of that panel, and you can use that to offset your energy usage. So if you've got a very shady space, it's a really nice option. I have done the math on those REC ones, and it's generally better, especially with tax incentives, to be able to own the solar yourself, put it up yourself, put it on your own building. But if shading is a problem, or if you don't have the ability to take the tax credits, those are something that's worth looking into. And Alliant Energy is coming out with one as well. They have a community solar program in Wisconsin, and one is coming to Iowa, but they have not yet announced any details about it, other than you can indicate and sign up that you're interested. And that might be a good option for you if you don't have a good site for solar. I had looked at their original proposal when they were filing it with Utilities Board, and it did look like maybe it was like a 15-year payback. Don't hold me to those numbers. I'd want to look at the details when they come out. So that's not as good as what you can get on your own, but still, that's not a bad deal. It's a way to buy clean power for your house. And the cool thing with that is that if you were to move within Alliance territory, you can basically roll that thing over to your new bill. If you move out of the territory, you're able to sell at a prorated version of that system price. You lose a little bit, but basically you're able to get a good portion of your initial cost down. So it's a great kind of no commitment way to do that. And I said I would talk a little bit more too about Alliance net metering policy. In the past, they would actually have something that was closer to what people call net metering, where you would actually get a kilowatt hour credit on your bill, and that would either roll over indefinitely with their first net metering piece, or with their most recent one, they would have an annual cash out. So you were able to accrue that kilowatt hour credits, and then at the end of the year, you would end them. This new policy that they call net billing actually converts your credit to cash at the end of each month, but you are getting full retail value for every kilowatt hour that you've sold. So it looks different, but in effect, it's actually the same. So I don't know. The thing that's important to note is that you can make solar up to your annual usage. And if you make more than you use in one day or 1 month, it's going to balance out at the end, as long as you're not producing more in 1 year than you're using. Because with the new policy, actually, if you have a credit that's accruing on your bill at the end of the year, that credit goes to zero. So it's dollars that you're literally just giving back to the power company. So that's just, to note, what proper sizing is really important. So just a reminder that I will certainly take questions if anyone has questions on what we've covered or what we haven't covered. A reminder that, again, we have these project talks every month. We will be meeting online again at noon next month, June 15th. That's again the third Tuesday. And we'll be having some folks from the Sioux Green Line coming to talk to us about a pretty exciting project. This is a kind of a graphic and a map down there, but they are running a high voltage DC power line that's going to be underground. And it's going to run from roughly Mason City. It's going to go along the river through Dubuque and close to Rockford, Illinois, so suburb of Chicago. And it's going to move a whole bunch of wind and solar from the Midwest to Chicago and beyond, because Chicago is actually part of the Eastern grid. So this is a way for Midwest renewable energy to be sold on the East Coast. And it's neat that they're doing it in a way because it's all buried underground, and majority of the project is going to be directly along the railway right of way. So it's not something that you're going to see. You're not going to see any transmission towers once they're done constructing it. It'll be underground, so it'll be out of the way. and more or less it's going to be on an existing railway corridor, so that they plan to have a whole lot less sort of landowner disputes. And a lot of people nationally are looking at this project to see how this could work, because this really could be the future of how to make transmission work in a way that we can get renewable energy from where it's created. A lot of times, and when that's wind especially, that's, you know, in the middle of the Dakotas, and getting it to population centers where people are going to use it. So yeah, I hope you can join us next month. Any questions out there on the solar? Oh, okay, great. I've got one here from Donna. Are there any usual maintenance costs that could affect the payback calculation? And on solar, I do not account for any maintenance costs on solar. One of the things to talk about on that is that, you know, solar, unlike wind, doesn't have any moving parts, for example. So the wires are there, and the products stay in place. I mean, I think if you're going to do scheduled maintenance on solar, kind of like you do scheduled maintenance on your car, like oil change every 3,000 miles, change the air filter, all that sort of thing, you're supposed to go in at years 5 and 10 and 15 and screw, tighten down all the connections, so that everything is grounded and there's no loose wires and the panels are stuck in place. But one of the great things about solar these days is that almost every system has a panel level monitoring on it. So either there's actual inverters on the back of every panel, or if there's what they're called optimizers that are optimizing panels energy production when there's shade. And those are able to measure the energy coming out of every individual panel, as well as, you know, because your aggregate production. And so you can see if you have a problem panel, if something times happens, you just get a bad batch, right? Where you've got 20 panels on your roof and 19 of them are kicking along fine, but one of them isn't. Well, you'll know if you're paying attention to your app. And a lot of times your installer is going to get an automated message from that system as well to say, hey, this panel is not producing like the rest of it should be. And so it could be a loose wire, it could maybe something's wrong with the panel. But I've certainly heard from folks who have had a bad panel that they didn't even realize that their contractor came and swapped out for them. And so no, I don't budget any time, any extra costs for maintenance. The one thing that I do warn people is your insurance costs. You know, again, using that example of a $15,000 system, really you just need to make sure that if your house is going to have a fire, that and your rebuild cost includes the cost of solar. So if your house costs $200,000 and you put a $15,000 solar system on it, you need to tell your insurance agent that, say, hey, insure my house for $215,000 instead of the 200. There's not special solar insurance. It's just it's an added value to your house, and so you need to increase the value of your house when you're talking coverage. I think a related question to that oftentimes that I'll get is just, you know, is our solar panels stand up to hail? And the answer is yes. Your panels are strong. They're laminated glass, and they're going to be stronger than your shingles, certainly, and they're probably going to be stronger than even a metal roof. So Lindy, I hope that answered your question, if we need special insurance and replacing a roof and hail damage. Although I guess I would say, just if I'll read this question again and answer it just in one way. So would we need special insurance for the solar panels? Also, how about replacing a roof and hail damage? So I hope I answered your insurance question there. And then the question about roof replacement is your roof old when you're putting solar panels on it? Because you are looking at solar panels being on your roof for 25 years. How old are your shingles and how long are they going to last? And that's something that you maybe want to just make a judgment call on. If you think you've got 10, 15 years left in your shingles, I would go ahead and just put solar right on top of them. If it looks like your shingles only have another 5 years left, maybe you want to re-roof and solar at the same time. It's not a catastrophe though to have to take the shingles or to take the solar panels down and to put shingles up. It's kind of a pain, but I do know that folks have done that. Take the panels down, stick them in the garage, re-roof, and then put the panels back up on the roof. You know, the wires and everything are already going to be there. Mechanical fastenings are already going to be in the roof, and so it's a little bit more work for your roofer, but it's possible to make that happen. Great. Any other questions? I'll go ahead and stop my share here. I think we've got a good group today, so if anybody wants to chime in, even on your mic, you sure can, or send me another message in the chat. Heidi, are you still on? Did you want to say anything that I didn't cover today, or let us know about what we should be looking out for at the Energy District the next month?
I can do that. I think you covered the intro for our next energy lunch, which was great. Really excited for that one. Other things coming up this summer, we've got our electric vehicle fest will be back at the farmers market. So from July through August, we'll have one car at the farmers market every week. And if you've got an electric vehicle that you want to show off, get in touch with me. Otherwise, we'll hope to see you at the farmers market. I feel like that's, in my mind, that's the biggest event coming up.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. Well, I don't think we have to take up our whole hour. Thanks everybody for joining us. Know that you can get a hold of me at joel@energydistrict.org. You can find my rest of my contact information on our website as well. If you want to talk solar, I'm always happy to talk to folks on the phone if they've got questions about where to get started. And like I said before too, if you would like a solar site assessment for me, that's a written report, and I charge when I visit your house and write things for you. But happy to chat on the phone and get you started in the right direction. Check out our website as well. We've got a list of Energy District supporters that are solar contractors. All of those are great folks to work with. And in fact, I have worked with many of them. So check out the website again. So I think with that, we'll leave it. I know that we sometimes go long on these, and I think we will next week. I know I'm going to have a bunch of questions for folks from the Sioux Green line. But if you have questions after this, get in touch, and thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you, Joel.
See you guys.